Are you still there, Perseus, or are you taking a break?
Oh yeah, I'm still there.
Okay.
I thought for a minute I was just checking on YouTube to see if it was up, and I didn't find it.
Yeah, it'll just go down for until it's down, and they usually wait a few minutes. Otherwise, it just takes the new topic name. And
So, do you know anything about this Ocasio-Cortez woman who ended up beating out some establishment candidate somewhere?
I don't know anything about her, but hey, it's probably gonna sheep her the left back to DNC party, right? It's like, all right, we got a progressive. Everyone, let's go back into the Democratic Party. Who cares if they're corrupt? Look, we got a progressive in there. And she's a Justice Dem, and the Justice Dems champion is Ro Khanna. Uh, it's just a farce. It's they'll do. I mean, there's not even an independent or third party that's going to be in the that's running. So it's just basically now her and the Republican candidate. Yeah.
So, as far as the potential, not well, here's the thing: it's not necessarily the death of the Democratic Party in title, but the
Hmm.
current establishment Dems who are just like being, you know, crushed more or less, and like no funding, they're losing control of the Supreme Court for probably a generation or more. All of that going on right now that's making them all like did you see any of the crazy shit Cenk Uygur was doing today?
I don't really watch Cenk Uygur.
Oh, okay. Well, basically, he's acting like a guy who's terrified. Like he's afraid right now. He's acting stupid. He's overreacting. He looks like his blood pressure is like 220 over 180.
Yeah.
Like um it's absolutely he's in like meltdown mode. And it seems like the establishment's just losing so much momentum right now that they're doing desperate shit. And I don't know, do you think that if the Democrats, just because of the corruption scandals and screwing Bernie and all this stuff, if basically they can't win the next, like if they get reduced out of official party status, is what I'm trying to get. I know you don't have that in the US, but that's the analogy I'm trying to make.
Hmm.
If the Democrats were reduced to official party status in the US, do you think the establishment would allow it to happen, even if it happened like organically by force just in the elections? Or do you think that they would pretend they have more influence than they actually do, just as a masquerade indefinitely? Like even when 5% of the population supports them, they're still going to get a special treatment by the establishment. Like,
I think they'll just course correct. I mean, the whoever has control of both the Republicans and the Democrats. Hey, Yolis, and if there's too low of Democrats in office, they'll just make sure that they get really really shitty Republican as a
well, let
candidate.
me put it, that's the thing though. The Republican Party has been replacing neocons with populists in all the special elections that have been happening. And in the midterms, we could very well see a sweep of Trump populists replacing older neocon establishment figures. So the
Yeah.
Republicans might not be under control for much longer.
Well, I think both the Republicans and Democrats. This might be just the time of a switchover, rather than getting the old stay in. As they get new, fresh blood in, and they control them, and then that way they're in through. That way they have the eventually 20, 30 years from now. If they have like a long term plan, they have the key pieces in place. I mean, I wouldn't want to entrust my key. I guess people in office, who I use as pawns in. If I know they're just gonna probably pass away in like 8 to 12 years, like their
So
usefulness isn't
would
gonna
you be
be.
implying that you think the Trump populist figures in the Republican Party are already compromised and they're just part of a second stage to a plan?
Yeah.
See, I can understand the concern for that, but I think that if I live my life assuming that every plan is going to be foiled by something like that, then I'm going to get my ulcer back. It's going to just go downhill health wise. So I can't let myself think that way. Even if I can keep, it in the back of my mind that it's always a potentiality, it's important to not let myself be that black pilled.
Hmm. That's interesting. Hey, Ellis, what are your thoughts?
Hmm?
Hello.
I just came in.
Yeah, I know.
Hello?
Yeah, hey Ellis.
No, like literally, I just came in
Oh, okay.
into this conversation.
Okay. So, what's on your mind?
Uh, Shit. Coffee one. That is my current mood right now.
Good.
I'm still trying to process that.
Is that good or bad?
I'm happy.
Is
It's just like,
is that enough for you to? Are you gonna stay a Democrat, or are you gonna move back into Democrat if you weren't? Like, how does that affect your status?
Bro, I'm in Oklahoma. I don't have to be a Democrat to vote in their primaries. Fuck it.
So do you know any more? Because I actually don't know anything about this Cortez person. What do you know about them?
Well, so thus far, what I do know is that within New York, she's supported by the local chapter for Our Revolution. She's also supported by the Democratic Socialists of America. Thus, she's currently running on a very similar fundraising scheme to Bernie Sanders, with a complete dissolution of taking money from corporate political action groups.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the primary things that I know. My understanding is that she's also backed a Medicare for All system as well as some degree of educational reform. I do know that immigration is a pretty significant policy issue that she is concerned with, and I believe she is because I believe somewhat as a response to the recent border crises, but in likelihood as a result of the long-standing issues within the Latino community with the behavior of ICE, she is currently calling for its abolition.
Oh wow, that's really gonna make her not popular among a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it's basically she's poison for the Democrats.
Well, poison for the establishment for sure, and she definitely seems to take this sort of scorched earth approach that you wouldn't see the older members be willing to try. You know, I don't really include Joe Manchin, because Joe Manchin is a fucking sellout.
Oh, do you know what her stance is on like the DNC fraud lawsuit, or say WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, or say war out, our foreign policy?
You're kind of breaking up a bit.
Do you know what her stance is on war or foreign policy, or Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, or on DNC fraud lawsuit of what happened to Bernie Sanders in 2016?
I don't know. I don't know what her stances specifically are on issues of war. Or WikiLeaks. Obviously, considering she's running in the Democratic Party, I doubt she's willing to. I doubt she is going to take a public stance on the status of the DNC fraud lawsuit. But I don't know. It's personally difficult for me to imagine her being necessarily for or against it. Most people I talk to who typically stay in the Our Revolution camp tend to stay away from the issue of Julian Assange and what was the other one? Fuck. The third one you mentioned. The DNC fraud lawsuit.
Okay.
I suspect those are kind of areas that most of them don't want to touch, because those evoke a lot of very contentious themes that if you're trying to get votes within the Democratic Party, saying that you're in support of a lawsuit that's suing them, even if it's not the members personally, it's going to evoke that sort of, do I really want to trust somebody who might
rat them out?
try to party?
I mean,
so,
wouldn't that be a good thing for people to vote on? Is like, hey, get the corruption out?
But you have to understand, once you're in a political party, there's a definite tribal mentality that goes within it. The integrity of the tribe has to be preserved. Whatever your personal likes or dislikes.
You mean
the
outward appearance of the integrity of that party? You mean? Because if you don't have integrity, especially in a party, you don't have integrity. You're just
individual. Well, it's not so much as it. Well, here's the thing. It's not, in this case, I'm not referring to as sort of individual integrity, which is the kind of thing that I typically tend to support. But when you're talking about this as a group, as a function, there's a certain sort of integrity of group cohesion and integrity that's necessary. And it's not really helpful if you're taking sides, taking sides that, or perceived to take sides that go against your group. So that's honestly.
So if you had a group of people, and people within that group were pedophiles, and you didn't like pedophiles, you'd be like, hey, we gotta keep the integrity of the group, so don't tell anybody about the pedophiles.
They could compromise the integrity group by their presence.
Yeah, I mean that's basically how the Catholic Church has maintained relevancy. Is that regardless of what whatever goes on at the higher ends of the church, that the preservation of the group comes before the ethics in a lot of cases. The connection to God is worth is a price that you have to bear for dealing with corrupt church officials. In a similar manner, people are willing to put up with corruption within their own group as a means to an end to achieving what they believe is the overall preservation of the group's integrity as a unit.
Do you support that?
Integrity as a moral.
Do you support that approach?
No, obviously I don't. Obviously, I don't support. Look, here's how I phrase it. I don't support, as a general policy, that people toss out their integrity aside at every which way just because you want to fit in with people. Understand, but that said, I do think that if you're committed to this idea that you want to run within a party to reform it, then there are going to have to be concessions that you have to make on your end in order for that to work. Whether or not you are willing to make those concessions, those are totally separate conclusions. And more often than not, there is a breaking point at which most people aren't willing to go past. Tim Canova is an example of somebody who reached his point and jumped ship. But and to be honest, in Tim Canova's case, all the power to him, because frankly, with the situation in Florida, and particularly in his district, it might actually prove him better off just running as an independent and just trying to grassroots the whole thing through, rather than wasting time and energy going through a primary process of which he's not going to be given a fair shot to begin with.
Florida's really tricky though, because progressives is just a bad word to anyone in the conservative area of Florida. I've tried speaking to a couple. They're like, I'm sorry, the word progressive. I'm like, okay, independent? They're like, sorry, you said progressive. Bye. But they don't like Trump either. They're like libertarians. They're like the libertarian Bible Belt of the South.
That's so weird.
It is, but they'll readily take up a union or a what do you call it, allyship with Republicans that they hate and Republicans that they just always backstab them anyways over progressives. But a lot of it also has to do with, like, as you hear, Bill Cooper. They're against Marxism. They think the entire global agenda is like a global form of socialism / communism. And so they're going to be opposed to that at every step. So all you have to do is to get their votes is to say the other person is progressive, that they want to install socialism or communism, and those people will never vote, even if it's something that's better off for them, even if it's gets rid of corruption. They just don't like that idea, because it's been instilled to them.
Well, I mean, I think part of the problem is that there's trusting a policy and concept and trusting the government to execute it efficiently enough to not be a blunder. So, oh yeah, healthcare for everyone, but do you trust the U.S. government to run that system not into the ground?
Yeah.
Like, for me, it's always come down to that pragmatism. It's never been about the principle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what ism that you want to institute, but if there's the corrupt in power, they're not going to institute the way that you want. They're going to, if they don't support it, they're going to run it so badly that it's going to be like, hey, look, we tried it. It doesn't work. So you guys should just listen to us.
Well, I mean, holy crap, you could probably have the medical expenses in the U.S. by changing hospital regulations and ending medical waste.
Yeah. There's a lot we could do.
The amount of stuff that's perfectly good equipment that's just shipped overseas.
Mm-hmm. Heck, we could just make things cheaper. We could just make insurance cheaper. We can do plenty of things. It doesn't have to be free. It could be practically free, pretty much. But it can generate a lot of money, but, all the money goes to the top.
Or even better, actually educate the population on how to live a healthy preventative lifestyle.
Prevention, education. But I always have a feeling that they purposely make public education horrible. That way they could say, hey, look, public education's horrible. You guys don't know what you're doing. So, I don't know. It's always just one of those things to fight. And it's like, hey, we've been doing public education. They just weren't doing it my way. We should have charter schools, etc., etc. I don't know. It's like, that's the thing is, like, some people are saying, of course we went to Mars. Of course we went to the moon. It's like, we can't institute any policy that really works in America yet. We can go doing these crazy things, outer space, within a few years, with old technology that we can't replicate or make better. It's like saying, hey, we made those non-digital watches, the ones that actually have the hands, shorthand, longhand. Yeah, we can't make those anymore because we destroyed how to make those. So I'm sorry, it's all digital from here on out. Doesn't make any sense.
What is it called? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. That's just sanity. But you know what's funny though? It wouldn't surprise me though if our technological ability did outstrip our ability to socially organize, just because people get old and stagnate and they get set in their ways. Mm-hmm. So socially you can only change so much every generation without violence.
That does make sense. I mean, if you look at everyone who's in office now, they're all pretty dang old. I mean, you could be in the Senate, I think, or you could be in the Congress, I think, as young as 26 years old. Yet we don't have anyone. I think that the average age is something like probably like 56 or something. Let me look that up. Oh my goodness. Am I close or am I close? 57 years. That's in 2016. Wow.
Is that the average age?
Yeah. 57. I was 1 year off.
See who the youngest person is.
All right. least Stefanik, Republican 21. Maybe it wasn't 26. Maybe it could be 21. I didn't know that.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. They're a military veteran if they're already in Congress at that age.
Oh. Let's see. House of Reps, it looks like. Yeah, it seems like it's. Huh. Didn't know that.
And they won first in 2017, does it say? I can't quite read it on the your screen.
Better. So minimum age is written into Article 1 of the United States Constitution, which bars persons under the age of 25 from serving in the House and persons under the age of 30 from serving in the Senate. In the 115th Congress, which began on January 3rd, 2017, the youngest member of the United States House of Representatives is Elise Stefanik. He's a Republican in New York's 21st District. He was born in 1984. She's 33. So, yeah, we got a pretty old. I mean, 57 to the average age. That's old.
We're having an absolute.
Jesus, that's how old on average. Oh, sure.
And that's how you get the millennials to where they can be a force, and hopefully they're not brainwashed like Gen X was. That they get into politics and they try to redefine it, and get the younger generation before them to really work at it and get these old people who are stuck in their ways in their politics, which has failed. Which basically, hey, I don't know if you heard, AOLS, but you guys are paying for all our debt. You and your kids. I'm sorry, you and your kids and your grandkids are paying off our debt. My father's debt. And
do you think anyone's actually going to be ever paying it off, though? You don't think it's just going to be unrecognized?
The debt is felt through the people that live in the U.S. As far as the people who don't really care about it, the rich, they don't care. They don't feel it.
Oh no, I mean the citizenry through hook or by crook, refusing to be held accountable to decisions beyond their control and replacing people at the top of such organizations.
Oh, I hope. I mean,
similar to how Iceland just jailed their bankers to fix the financial crisis.
Yeah, I would hope that would happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think
they'd be on their plane to Tasmania before you could catch them.
I mean, the United States, as far as like how gung-ho they are with their military, they're pretty much, I would say as a country, we're kind of cowards. We're like, we like to yell and say, if you don't do this, I'm going to call the cops, or, oh yeah, let's see how you can do in a fight. They won't even get in fights, and then it's like, it's not a fair fight. 5 of my friends against you. That's a fair fight. We'll teach you. That's Americans these days. We're not gonna have a revolution, and if we do, they'll go belly up really fast. I don't know what happened. I don't
think it would go belly up really fast.
Well, the ones who are like really gung ho about it and say yeah, and then they'll go belly up fast. It's like, I didn't want this really. I was just.
Oh yeah, all those people would definitely be kicking off the revolution before the actual circumstances were correct to do so.
Yeah. So if there's gonna be a real revolution, real war,
in order to throw your bankers in jail, I mean, you can do it legislatively.
Mm-hmm. But people are too worried about their paychecks. They got paid their rent. Yeah.
Honestly, one of the reasons why I think the establishment pushes transgenderism is that if people are, in order to maintain the changes, they have to stay on the hormones indefinitely. So that basically plugs them into the system.
So it's like a two-way thing. First, they're not going to be very.
Well, yeah, they basically need, in order to. Okay, so think of it this way. So if they're going to have like a $36 to $60 worth of either spironolactone or some kind of estrogen, indefinitely, for years or decades. So that's a prescription they're always going to be on.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, they're not going to want any kind of revolutionary change in society because that could disrupt the supply chain that they're getting their prescriptions through. So it basically puts them in a situation where they're plugged into the system more so than the average person, especially if they take out debt to get any of their procedures done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Plus, their aggressiveness factor kind of goes away. They'd rather be the cheerleader rather than the one in uniform. Let's just say that. But I don't know. I feel like I'm serious. If there's gonna be a revolution, people have to realize it has to be quick. It has to be done quick, because if it's prolonged, the establishment will win, and if it's prolonged, there will be more deaths. There will be, you said that so yourself, Perseus. The longer like a revolution is or a war is, that there are more deaths. There's more longer consequences of also revenge and animosity.
The psychological trauma the war inflicts on the society is worse the longer the conflict drags on, rather than the opposite of that.
Yeah. I mean, we could say, hey, look, these corrupt in charge don't know what they're doing. If they do know what they're doing, then they're complicit, right? So let's just go and take over. Let's take back the country.
No, but you literally can't do it that way, though, because what's going to happen is all the records you need to run the country will be destroyed in that process if you just basically rush the courthouses. Like that kind of revolution can't happen in the 21st century.
What? It has to be revealed. The first step is to secure the information, secure the data, and reveal it to the public. That way the public can document it and keep it. And then all the stuff that's in there, anyone who's in there, that's been withheld for the public for security reasons, etc., they're going to be held accountable. And that's how it starts. And
massive disclosure would have to take place of some kind. Some kind of pedogate uncovering.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is they need that data, because that's how they control people within the power structure. So if you get to that access to that information, you reveal it all, especially to the public who's watching, and spread it out so it's redundant and you can access that information anywhere. It's a clean house time. There's no one gonna want to stop people who are just running child trafficking, pedophiles, protecting child sacrifices, etc., or protecting people who are just embezzling money from the people, etc. Who's gonna want to say, hey, stop your revolution? It's bad because who cares how bad these guys are? What you guys are doing are illegal. It's like, no, these guys are doing illegal stuff and they're still in power. It doesn't make any sense to a lot of people, but I guess I'm just waiting. It's just me right now. And no one's out there talking about it. If it is, it's secret, and if it's secret, then it could just be FBI. So it's just, people have to come out. People have to publicly show their faces and say, hey, that's what we need. We need a cleansing of the corrupt in power.
Well, to be honest, I think the most realistic way something like that could come about would be several prominent governors getting on board with the movement. Nothing short of that would allow it to happen.
Because the governors would...
No, they would be able to use the state guards to very quickly, secure all the nodes of control in terms of transport infrastructure within their states. I mean, the U.S. military needs the U.S.'s infrastructure to operate. So if the right governors are able to just lock down those areas before the military machine really starts to roll, and then public support would be more on their side. It wouldn't seem like, oh, this is some crazy revolution. It would just seem like a sectarian conflict. It'd be a lot more palatable. It probably wouldn't get as much international intervention, because I mean, if any kind of massive uprising or civil war happens in the U.S., that other countries are going to be getting involved, and it's going to get way more messy. Sure. Like Mexico's probably going to make a move on the southern states. Shit's going to go down in Europe at the same time, since the NATO allies won't necessarily you know, they'll have, if you know, Germany could anticipate the Russians are going to invade them because the US is occupied, so they might preemptively attack Moscow. All kinds of shit would happen if there was a second American,
Yeah.
either civil war or revolution.
China would probably Korea, Japan, and Hawaii. Um, yeah, there's a lot out there that can happen. That's tough.
And that's the thing. World War I started because the Russians had to mobilize. So the German intelligence intercepted the information that the Russians had sent word to mobilize their forces. So the Germans immediately started doing certain things of theirs as a response to this. The thing is, though, is that in Russia, they didn't have a modern military yet at the time. So them mustering their forces and calling up the army was going to take several months. So they just did it preemptively 6 months in advance of what they thought a flashpoint might be. So it wasn't that they were planning on moving anytime soon. Their logistics and trying to get troops in, like from the rural region in the rural parts of the country at the time before the railroads were widespread, it took a long time to get their forces ready. So, you know, them just planning ahead resulted in the spark that started the war.
But I feel so. There's a lot of U.S. governors in the U.S. that are probably within that system. They're probably they're put in place by those that are in power right now. And if they're not, well, they want to be. They'll be usually multimillionaires and billionaires. And you'll see a lot of them, and they actually run as governor to help themselves run as president, especially in the Republican Party.
Well, the thing is, though, well, I mean, that's the thing. The Republicans sell on the fact that they can govern. That's one of their whole things.
Mm-hmm.
They claim the Democrats can't, and then they prove they can do it first, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that at some point, though, you're going to have people jumping ship on these, mystery cults and all this other crap like that. People are going to be people who aren't in as deep as the people who are at the very top. Yep. Will start peeling away, and those are going to be the people who will be the most ardent in their, oh, well, we have to bring up the state guard and make sure XYZ doesn't happen. Like, you know, why are these UN troops in Texas? You know, that whole, I'm sure you've heard that meme before, right?
Yeah, kind of. I've seen it before. Okay. I think you showed it to me. I just can't remember too well.
Yeah, it's because a lot of arms manufacturers in Texas make stuff for the UN. So you see UN convoys on trains being transported to port, and then it's being shipped overseas. But they're saying, oh, no, it's UN troop movements in America. There's going to be an NWO takeover. That's what they say.
Yeah. And yeah, I can see that. But the thing is the ones that aren't very high up in these schools aren't they just wanting to wait to get up there just to know the truth about it all?
Oh no, I mean, like if they can put themselves in a position where they're the last one standing, their truth is the new truth.
Oh, so it doesn't matter what the ones above them were preaching. They're now the new head. But then we just start all over. Of course.
No, that is literally the point, because humans aren't really good at beginnings and endings. They're really good at cyclical processes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to end that cycle, Perseus. Not just speed it up to get back to the good parts. Because here's the thing, is if we're going to end a cycle, or a whole bunch of cycles, we need to end it at the worst parts, because no one's going to want to go ahead and do it when it's all nice and sunny and rosy out there. It's like no one really cares about having a revolution when it's nice. It's having that revolution when it's not nice, when things are at the downturn and it seems like it's never going to go up again. And that's how you can end a cycle, because people are ready for it. But, you know, rather than repeating the cycle, you just make sure you try to end that cycle.
I know, but think of it this way, though. I mean, so let's say you have your revolution. I'm guaranteeing you that there's going to be a dozen secret societies that form as a direct counter-revolution to the fact you took power.
Yeah. That they'll just wait and just restart the entire cycle again, right?
And not even necessarily the same people, just entirely new groups taking the opportunity to move into that empty space.
Yeah. Because they figured, heck, we're not going to get up there because of our of our shady past. So we got to take control of it, make us look good, etc. But it's a huge undertaking. I mean, I don't see anyone out there wanting to. People think it's just crazy. People think it's like traitorous. People think it's like you're just psycho. But heck, yeah, let's just reset. Let's just hit the reset button. Everyone's just wanting the reset button. That way your great grandkids can figure it all out when AI take over.
Oh yeah, yeah. See, honestly, I hope that you know what I would really like to see, even though I don't expect it to happen, is some kind of like neo-Mennonite movement where we're like, no, early 21st century technology is enough. We're going to stop it here.
But
I'm sure you could probably get like a small group of people together and get religion status under that banner. But in terms of an actual large social movement, it'd be very hard to pull off.
yeah, I think
People
so
like their
too.
convenience.
I mean, it's you got to read the Dune series. So, as far as Frank Herbert's Dune, before we even move on to what his son and another co-author ended up going off with after Frank Herbert died, is that at the current time that the stories are taking place in Dune, that they knew there was a history, and the history there is called a Great War. It's called something similar to that.
Oh no, yeah, it's the Butlerian Jihad.
There you go. Hey, I thought. Oh yeah, you watched the shows. You didn't really read the books. Yeah, so the Butlerian Jihad was where they had computers, artificial intelligence, and that pretty much almost destroyed humanity. And so they made sure that they don't.
The sparking point was when humans realized the machines had been secretly selectively breeding them for several generations.
Yeah. So you know, it seems like every science fiction book and story has like nothing good comes out of AI yet. People are out in power and ahead in technology and science. They're like, let's go for it. We can do it.
No, they're the insane ones who want to unleash that kind of power. If I was designing any kind of thing related to AI, I'd be designing it to be as incapable of functioning without human assistance as possible.
Yeah. It keeps getting me to that Ian Malcolm of Jurassic Park. That guy, that actor. It's like,
Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum. He's pretty good. Like, we don't ever. We're so focused on what we can do. I'm butchering it. That we don't ever stop and think whether we should. It's similar to that effect. Let me see.
I thought you were gonna say the "life finds a way" quote.
Oh, well, yeah, that too. He says, "Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should." That was the full exact quote. But yeah, life does find a way too. I mean, if AI does take over, it's just a new paradigm. Animals and humans alike are gonna have to figure out how to combat it. And because it's basically going to be so you're incorporating a new predator in a way. You're like at the food cycle, even though they're apart from the food cycle. They may not need to eat, but they need energy. Whether they use humans as batteries, like in the Matrix, or whether they use humans to get as slaves to keep mining energy for them until they figure out, hey, it's just easier to do away with them and we can do it ourselves now, type of thing. I just feel like, I don't know, it's just not smart. I mean, we can do automation. We don't need AI to do it for us. I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe we're the stupid ones, Perseus. Maybe we're just too stupid to get it. That the geniuses who are gunning for AI, they know everything. So,
well, no, I'm sure all it is they think it's an inevitability, so it has to be them who controls it. It's probably as simple as that, as far as their motivation.
Okay, that they're gonna put so many little backdoor switches and all this other stuff that, hey, nothing could go wrong.
Yep. Honestly, I think in the future we're gonna go back to having wires on a lot of stuff. I genuinely think there's gonna be a trend towards that, because easy to like bots that can just destroy Wi-Fi networks. They're just going to be so easy to get your hands on.
Did you ever see the new Battlestar Galactica? Not the old one back in the 70s, 80s, but the new one.
Yes, yeah, I've seen that one.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of that same concept. Like the Cylons, their initial attack in whatever the planet was. All the newer ships, all the newest battle stars were equipped with the latest technologies, and then they were all linked to each other, and thus they got easily attacked by a Cylon virus and pretty much became powerless, and they just got picked off. But Battlestar Galactica, they had the old ship where everything was through the like wires, like you were saying, the intercom sound system. And that's how they survived and kept fighting. It's talk about occultism there, Perseus. If you didn't notice, it's quite a lot.
In terms of in Battlestar Galactica, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you ever see the overt globalist occultism in Cleopatra?
Way back in the 60s?
Yeah, with Liz Taylor.
I haven't seen that movie since I was maybe 8. So I'd have
watch
to give
it again, and you'll
look.
literally blow your mind about like halfway through it. It's a really long watch.
Yeah, I know. It's like 4 hours. It's like
Yeah,
Ben-Hur. Like I remember watching Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur was good, and I watched that. That was like last time I watched that was probably when I was like 13.
Yeah, there's literally globalist messages encoded into it, and like occultism all over the place.
Cleopatra. I'm not surprised. Don't tell me I have to watch that. I wonder if they're. I'm surprised they're not making a remake. Let's see if I could.
Oh, you know why they probably won't make a remake?
Why?
Because Egypt's too controversial a topic now in pop culture.
Really? Pop culture is pretty big on occultism.
No, but in terms of there's like 3 different groups of people claiming to be the actual ancient Egyptians, so a media depiction of anything other than one of those groups will piss off both other groups.
Oh, so they can't have like me.
Yeah, there's 3 different ethnic groups that claim to be the actual ancient Egyptians.
Oh, okay.
And that being basically, with Hollywood being the way it is today, if they were to cast any one group of people as them, it would piss people off. And if they were to do it multiculturally, it would piss people off too. So there's no winning with Egypt.
I'm gonna have to watch it one night. And what I love about those old movies, I'm sorry, is the intermission. It's like the intermission that goes on for like 15 minutes or so. It just plays music.
Yeah, so you can go out to the bar, you know, get another whiskey or whatever, and go back into the theater like a classy gentleman.
Yeah, I mean that's what you do in anything else, right? If you go to orchestras, if you go to plays,
Operas.
Any of those, they always have intermissions. They had it in movies back then when the movies were like 4 hours long. People think 2.5 hours is too long of a movie these days. It's like, just go watch back to movies.
At the Fairview Mall in Toronto, the movie theater there has a bar in the movie theater, but not enough movies actually have intermissions to make good use of it.
Oh yeah. Well, a lot of the newer age movie theaters, they actually have waiters and waitresses where you can actually have them bring you beer and food.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that around here.
Oh, yeah, and they're making it so. I mean, basically, going to watch a movie is like it's very expensive now. So if you go to one of those theaters, you're talking about like $18, $19 to get an adult seat. But at least you get to pick your seat, and then
and not to mention the price on crab legs and falcon chow.
Oh yeah.
Anyone out there who gets the /TV memes?
I don't get it.
But they joke about, well, what do you get when you go to the movie theater? Everyone's response is, well, I get the crab legs, but my pet falcon, he gets the standard falcon chow. I'm not splurging for him.
Oh.
So they're basically implying that the only way you can afford to go to the movie theater is if it's like some big production.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that is, I think a lot more people, well, at least with families, it's hard to leave, leave your kids home. If you have family and you have kids, you need to find someone to babysit. So it's like, at least now we can go ahead and drive up to Omaha, where my parents-in-law are. They can look after the kids while we go out and have a drink or go watch a movie, which isn't bad. But otherwise, you're gonna have to like find a babysitter, pay your babysitter. If something happens, you come back home because babysitters, if they're not old enough or can figure it out, they have to call you back. And then you get the two prices of tickets, which are like almost $40 after taxes. And if you want a drink or beer, and a beer is gonna be costing like $8. You're gonna have pizza that's gonna cost like $12. Popcorn, even as small as like $4.50. Small soft drink would be like $3.50. I mean, it could be like $100 event. It's going for a night at the movies these days.
Yeah, considering the sheer number of flops that have been coming out in the last couple of years too,
Yeah.
it isn't necessarily worth the risk.
All right, let's look at current movie theaters out. Let's look at Fandango. Let's see what's out there and whether anyone here would want to watch it. There's Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. I heard it's bad. So, but of course, dinosaurs. So I'll one day watch it. Incredibles 2. Actually, I wouldn't mind watching that. I like the first Incredibles. I just don't know why it took them like 20 years to get a sequel. Sicario: Day of the Soldado.
I liked the first Sicario movie, so that might be good.
So did I. But this is actually a different director and probably a different cinematographer. But this one will probably be more straight up like action flick. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Oh, that's coming up. I guess. I mean, I know it's gonna be funny, at least. But I don't know. Uncle Drew.
Honestly, my key to not getting absolute burnout of the Marvel superhero movies, considering I have a young niece and nephew who absolutely love all that stuff, is by only rarely paying attention to it. Like, I've watched one of the movies out of every 5 that come out.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even watch Doctor Strange until it was like way out in where you can rent it and watch it.
Oh yeah, waiting until Netflix is usually what I do.
Netflix too. Netflix is great about showing them. But I watched it. It was good. Even people might think I don't. I may not like these movies because it has all these overt occultism symbology in them. But heck, I still love these movies. Ocean's 8. I heard bad things.
Actually, go back. I want to show you something. It's an occult principle on display, okay?
Right here,
in the Solo poster.
Yeah.
What the imperial insignia behind them rising is feigning the pattern, not exactly, but very close to the black sun, which is a Germanic pagan symbol. But notice how they've left the top of the sun incomplete. They've broken it under the Egyptian principle of not finishing the symbol, so its power doesn't work.
Interesting. And we might get into symbolism again. Have you ever read or watched that? Anyways, that's it. Nothing here. I really like. I'm dying to see. It's like I was kind of dying to see Infinity War, and I did get to watch it with my wife. She's like got no idea what the hell was going on. Let's see. So the Golden Web. It was someone called Jinx. I think it's Lynx. On live chat told me about it, so I watched it. I mean, it's like 3-part series. It's probably like 7-8 hours long. Has a lot to do with etymology, word derivations, and meanings of the words, as opposed to what we typically think as I would say the general public, the profane, whatever you want to call them, don't know about it because they don't research it, and it kind of I don't kind of go for it, but it kind of boils down to you want to save your energy. You don't want to fight these being good or bad, evil duality type of thing, because that's just kind of a way to weaken your energy, and save that energy to when you actually die, that we can fight off the forces that want to bring you back. So everything's cyclical, everything's about reincarnation. To keep you here is food for the aliens, which are the gods of that have put humanity into a matrix where they're feeding off of us, feeding off of our existence, and or like as a battery source. There's very many things that references the matrix with, and that light you see at the end of the tunnel is just kind of guiding you back into this whole thing. You know, tries to keep you here from all the experiences that you have, whether it's like pets, family, friends, etc. It's like, hey, I don't want to leave them, I want to go find them. So you go out and you just come back here. And it has to do with recharging the second sun. So the second sun that died out a long time ago, and this person's referencing that the one-eyed symbolism is basically because it's the one sun that's still in existence, and the second sun that's died out. They're doing these aliens, alien overlords, whatever, I don't know what you want to call them, want to use all the energy of humans, and so that's why they want a huge mass population until they don't need it anymore, and use the stock market as like fluctuations of like the heartbeat of the black sun. So once it's got a steady beat, that way they know that the black sun's charged, and we'll have the alien overlords will have two suns again. It's very interesting, but then I always
actually have a theory about the Matrix. Can I say it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think. Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, so what you're describing there, the whole idea of humanity being like a food source or part of a manufacturing process, that's not a unique idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that I think that if such entities or powers existed, they would try to present themselves to be as powerful as possible. The idea that, okay, well, we put you into this system and we control it in that regard. What I think is far more likely is that humans project some kind of gestalt psychic field that we are projecting our emotions into constantly, and that what form, or at least I guess the closest term I would use is an idelion, the image of an ideal. Basically, once enough people are operating so let's say, for example, there's an anxiety on your society and all the people are psychically responding to the same anxiety, it will produce this idelion as a way that's like it's a psychic manifestation of the collective angst of the society. And that if such an entity could exist and had intelligence, the idea is that it would only be able to sustain itself through a feedback loop. So what I'm saying is, let's say all the electrical patterns in our brains that we're putting out into, say, just Earth's electromagnetic field or something, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that this is causing some sort of reaction. Its patterns are happening. And then all the patterns that can't self-sustain fall out. All the patterns that can self-sustain remain. Kind of like the whole concept of abeogenesis. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. But the idea I'm getting at here is that such psychic energies that need psychic energy from humanity to function would need to create feedback loops to gain more and more psychic energy to continue to feed and grow. So if that is how things functioned, they would try to probably represent it to be the fact that, no, they're the origin and we're the lesser piece,
Mm-hmm.
when in reality, we're what is controlling them. And when I talk about the left-hand path, that's what I'm talking about. The idea that if, somebody over there's religion isn't the same as mine, but for psychic purposes, their religion is real enough to them insofar as it lets them access their psychic potential, because it's their belief, the surety of purpose, and basically the will to power that's allowing them to tap into this. And the idea would then be their religion doesn't need to have any basis in reality for it to have power over them. Whereas I'm operating out, and the right-hand path being the supplication to the bigger worldview. their psychic ability is being supplicated to one of these entities or to the people directing their religion, whereas I'm only interested in directing my own psychic energies, and I'm not focused on the psychic energies of other people. And I know that that's a really
Oh, where would
there
people who don't believe in anything, I guess you would say atheists and agnostics, fit in this type of system? Would they not have any?
Well, that's the thing, though. Okay, so in a mimetic sense, someone can be an atheist and still have a concept like the fear of hell drilled into them by pop culture over and over again. So even if it's just that automatic thought that happens as a response to a stimuli in like a cognitive thought kind of sense, like
Mhm.
the cognitive mechanism, it's kind of like they see the number 666 on something, they think Satanist imagery in their mind. They don't have to have a belief in it as a religion for those images to have a psychic impact on the way they're thinking. That's like the foundation of occult mimetics.
I get you. What was I
Oh,
gonna?
Carl Warwick actually wrote a book about it. I have it on my shelf over there.
Oh, I can't say anything behind you.
Oh, yeah, shit. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Um.
Oh, that all that psychic stuff I was talking about though isn't his stuff. That's my own beliefs.
Yeah.
But the mechanisms of occult mimetics is something that he wrote a book on.
Yeah. Have you ever read Neil Gaiman's works? And he actually has one of his books. I think it was called Old Gods or something like that, on Netflix or somewhere.
Oh, American Gods.
American Gods. Yeah.
No, I'm aware of what it is, but I've never looked into it.
Oh.
When it comes to religious stuff, I don't like being shaped by other people's opinions.
Yeah. So
I try to not like expose myself to that kind of thing.
yeah, he's like a graphics artist that kind of went into just kind of like books, but it's now that I think of it, it has a lot to do with kind of occultism in some sense. They probably added more into the show. I haven't watched the show. I just remember reading the book. I was like at least a decade, maybe 2 decades old. And what it is these old gods like Zeus and a couple of others. They go by different names now, but their power is dying because people don't believe in them anymore. That they're just myths. They don't really exist, and so they go to America and try to find people to believe in them again. And they still have some powers, but they can't have their full powers unless more people believe in them. So that's what they're kind of going out and do. I'm not sure if there was a antagonist in that book, like if they had to try to gain their old powers to fight something kind of like in a comic book type of way, but I don't remember since it was such a long time ago. Yeah, so it's something worth looking into, and I always wonder if I should, because I'm kind of going in that step where I'm kind of reviewing old movies and old books, especially ones that I loved and liked, and seeing the different meanings that could be interpreted with the symbology that's embedded into them. It's I like, when did you start getting into the cults, Perseus, or your paganism?
Okay, as far as me taking it seriously as a way of viewing the world, only in the last, say, 2 years.
Okay. Yeah.
In terms of something that's interested me, I've been interested in it for more than a decade.
Okay. Like I like noticed these things, but I didn't really put much merit into them, and then I started getting serious in like 4 months ago. Because I was like, okay, there's so many conspiracy theorists. Like if mainstream media will say, hey, that's just conspiracy theorist talk. So I'll just go looking into it, and there's more, and I keep looking into it, and then it keeps going on into like these occult practices and things like that you see in celebrity culture and in Hollywood, like movies and posters and trailers and actual movies. And then I keep going back further, and it's like and I'll have like interviews with certain people, and they'll say, hey, read Albert Pike's stuff. It's like, Albert Pike, who's that guy? It's like, just read up on him. So I read up on Albert Pike, and it's like, okay, so there's a statue of him in Washington D.C., and it's the only statue of any Confederate soldier, and he wasn't even like General Robert E. Lee. It's like, why would they have him in there? And then he's, you know, a 33rd Scottish Rite Freemason who wrote a book, Morals and Dogma, etc. And it's interesting. I keep going back in history, and that's where I want, because I want more original sources. Like for me, if I'm gonna try to prove to anyone about these conspiracies or like these secret societies exist, has to be something that's believable, that they would look into, and that they would take into account as a source, that they would say, okay, if this guy's saying it or it's written about, then I'll probably think about it. So I go into either .gov or I go into writings from, actually most of these writings from like like these letters from presidents in the past. That's all up on .gov websites. It's all there, talking about Freemasonry, Illuminati, from George Washington to the second to John Quincy Adams, who was the fourth president. And guess what the first third party in America was, Perseus?
Wait, what? Say that again. I was
first third political party in the United States, and this was I always like to start off with.
What, the Whigs?
No, it was actually before they kind of dwindled down and got formed into the Whigs. But it was called the Anti-Masonic Party.
Huh.
No one knows about that. Is that crazy? And then basically he talked. John Quincy Adams writes about it, about William Morgan. He was a Freemason. He's saying, hey, you know, once there's stuff that's being rituals that are done within the Freemason Society that it's not good. We shouldn't. It needs to be exposed. So he tried exposing it. A lot of stuff happened. They tried to burn down the place that was trying to be published. C.A.List, I didn't see if he was dropping out. He's probably going to Manitowoc. And he ended up getting arrested on bogus charges. Like, you know, he rented a tie and he didn't pay it back. And eventually he kind of disappeared. But the book got published anyway, and so there's just a lot of speculation as, hey, what happened to him? Did they kill him? And whatnot. Most likely they did kill him. The person who sentenced him and the people who brought him in, they're all part of the Freemasons. And that's how kind of all the anti-Masonic party got started. And what's interesting enough, William Morgan's wife, or who's now a widow, she actually traveled west and became one of Joe Smith's many wives of the Mormon founder. Yeah. So interesting history when you look into it, and it's not just crazy conspiracy history that we make up. We don't make up. That's what people don't realize. The real conspiracy theorists, they don't make up any of this stuff. We just research and try to find like the original sources and try to connect as many dots. And the less dots there is, the more obvious it is that there is something going on. But
one of the best reads that I had for something that really felt like that as I was reading it, like all these dots are just lining up.
Mm-hmm.
It was this series of books called Alternative Chronology. And as I said before, part of the problem with this series of books is that it was written in the 40s in the Soviet Union. So them picking apart all of the original sources and then the edited sources of the Gregorian, and it was the Gregorian order, and what was the other one? Like basically, you know, they were able to get a lot of church records when they seized control in certain countries.
Yeah.
So they were saying, okay, this looks like they were lying about this event. This event happened more recently in history. They're saying it happened this long ago. And all this kind of stuff, like very clear things where it's showing good documentation that the Catholic Church and some of the Orthodox churches were really fucking with historical records.
Yeah.
Then that said, the quote alternative chronology was just as self-serving and easily seen as a power play on the part of the Soviet power structure. So you can't take their conclusions seriously.
Yep.
But what you can do is look at the sources that they dissected and say, yeah, this is incredibly suspect on the part of the church.
Yeah. And you said alternative chronology, you said?
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the guy who wrote it, unfortunately.
All right, that's fine. I'll have to take a look.
I'm sure it's going to be called Pseudoscience by Google.
Oh, yeah. We're getting to that point, and what kills me is, things like this is going to be shut down. I'm pretty sure on YouTube. Eventually, if they catch on, at least I could go on DLive now. Periscope, they don't seem to care, but I don't think a lot of people watch from Periscope anyway, because it's all based on who's following you on Twitter. But it's still always going based off of views and viewership. And like, I don't know if you watched my little thing on the other channel, one of the other YouTube channels. Thoughts is Kevin Booth, who worked with both Bill, was the guy, Bill, he's a comedian, Bill Hicks, and Alex Jones, and now Joe Rogan. He's actually the he's the guy who produced other stuff. He's got Joe Rogan is really famous now. It's like, I feel like it's just part of, and you can see all the occult symbolisms that he does in pictures and whatnot. I think, yeah, if at the most, if that's not Bill Hicks isn't Alex Jones, I think they are all part of like controlled opposition, just like TYT would be for the establishment for the left. And you got to have controlled opposition on the right, and so it's Alex Jones. Joe Rogan's kind of that mix of in between. I think he's just kind of like the wild card, you know. Mm-hmm. He just gets as many people who are also in controlled opposition on his show, you know, just get people following him and following all these others, and there you go. You just have, it's like, hey, I love him, hey, I love her, let's just now, and he's interviewing them, and it's like, all right, we gotta watch more of them. But like, how feasible do you think it is? And that's what I've been trying to do, at least reaching out and getting people who are like in the really independent community, who make videos, who try to provide information to people that they may not might not care to know, because it's just, it's almost like a weird movement, this truther movement, because there's the truther movement, and I think that's also have been controlled, also providing disinfo, so like a disinfo truther movement. Then there's just ones who are just trying to find as much stuff as they can, and just formulating with others. Like, I'm getting the Christian side, or maybe the non-paganist, non-occultist side of occultism, but that's because whenever I read about it, it's like the ones who are in the occult or in these societies aren't going to tell you the truth about it anyways. So as I'm in that double blind. It's like I can only go and kind of take the works of the Christians and agnostics side of what they research, and not the side of the occultists themselves. But you're in an interesting position because you're kind of on a different path of the Luciferians and the secret societies, in a way.
Well, I don't know. Like, the whole thing with me is that, okay, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying. Ultimately, I mean, like all the ancient classical skeptics would say, is ultimately we can't know anything for certain, because at some point we're going to have to just trust one of our sources. We can't have firsthand information about everything.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think it's just more important, in order to decide what I believe and use that as a basis in order to build my worldview and, basically decide how I'm going to move through my life, because it's better to be moving in a direction under your own power not necessarily have the map to where you're going, than it is to just be swept along with whatever the current's going to do, in my opinion anyway. I absolutely can't stand being controlled by other people.
Yeah. Hmm. Do you talk with, or do you like compare
Oh yeah,
notes
I
with
go to.
anyone else?
There's a few different occult Discord servers that I go to,
Mm-hmm.
but part of the problem is right now there's this thing in the occult community that's in like the normie entry level tier that's taking over it, and I mean technically it's been trying to take over it for the last couple of years, and it's this Buddhist concept called topas, and a topa is like this astral construct, and it's absolutely like the people who are doing it so wrong, and they are just completely shitting everything up. So it's almost like I started going to like some of these places, but because these topa people are absolutely dominating everything there and they seem really unhealthy mentally, it's like I don't want to be part of those communities anymore.
Can you give an example?
Okay, well, so these tulpas. Okay, yeah, I wasn't saying it right. So whatever it is that there it says here,
Mm-hmm.
this tulpas in modern Western society. What these people are doing is they think the tulpas are like these imaginary friends they can just create without repercussions in their brain because they're lonely. A lot of the people on these forums who are pushing the tulpa stuff are very socially isolated and awkward people almost universally. And they think it's like some kind of imaginary friend that they can create in their mind. And it's like, no, that's not supposed to be what this is. And it's just such a corruption of it that it makes me not want to go to those places. And two really good occult Discord servers got totally taken over by people doing this.
Do you think it was like a planned takeover, or do you think it just?
Oh, yes, I absolutely believe that it was something that was injected into the community specifically because it would prey upon the mental insecurities of a specific type of person.
So it was more personal in nature, you think, that this
Well, I
takeover
think
was?
that people don't end up looking at the occult if they've had an absolutely normative experience in life. If you know what I mean.
So it
Like the,
takes like
the type of people it attracts tend to already be susceptible to certain things.
hmm, am I susceptible? Like traumatic experiences or something?
Well, not necessarily traumatic experiences, but it could just be, somebody's just had a really shit go at their career. Like, they became obsoleted somehow, or just people who are, or, oh no, maybe that's not the best way of putting it. That some people who go turn to the occult are doing it because there's been a downturn in their life. But a lot of people who turn to it are just people who are independent thinkers. They don't like any of the established religions that are like big. And particularly, in my opinion, this is what causes the communities to fracture and break up so often,
Mm-hmm.
is that every it's free real estate, if you know what I mean. There's no big centralized power structure that everyone's keyed into in the occult. I mean, there are organizations that exist, but they're not taking members openly most of the time.
Yeah.
So it's everyone gets to be their own pope in the sense that, and that goes back to the Pike stuff too, or the Crowley stuff. But the idea is that everyone thinks they're going to be someone who's going to found some new branch of modern neo-paganism that's going to dominate and be some sort of ascendant thing. That's not really what you should be. If that's what you're interested in, you're not looking into the right stuff.
Mm-hmm. You're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Oh, well, it's not even just that. I mean, everyone I've talked to about that always envisions it in a big bombastic trumpets playing open in the streets way, which is exactly why it wouldn't work the way they're envisioning it.
Hmm.
Like the entire point. And I mean, like, think of it this way. Are you familiar with the book Might is Right?
Nope, but I heard that term quite a lot. I
Okay,
didn't even
well,
know
I
there
don't know
was a
if the
book.
expression, yeah. So I don't know if the name of the book came first or the expression came first, but it was published sometime in the 19th century by an anonymous person. And basically, it's a rational reason to behave sociopathically, spelled out in incredibly politically incorrect terms. But it's like game theory before the modern language to discuss it existed. And it talks about how Christianity is provably a control system that was designed in order to be the slave class to another specific system. And that the joke being is that the Christians are always being up in arms saying, oh, look at all this immoral stuff. Meanwhile, uh, you know, kind of like you were saying, like with the whole, pedogate thing, the Christian people would be saying, oh, yeah, this is just proof of Satan's work and blah, blah, blah. No, the fact that you believe in Satan in the form that you believe in him was planted in your mind by them as a way to control your behavior and make you predictable in your outrage. Like, what is it called? Like, it really breaks down how Christianity is this very meticulously designed control system, particularly post-King James Christianity.
Okay, so it says influence portions of Might is Right comprise the vast majority of the Book of Satan in Anton LaVey's The Satanic Bible, the founding document of the Church of Satan. Though it is no longer included in the current printings of the Satanic Bible, the early printings included an extensive dedication to various people whom LaVey recognized as influences, including Ragnar Redbeard.
Yeah, Ragnar Redbeard wasn't like, people don't think he was like one person or even like, it was like a pseudonym.
Mm-hmm. This rabbit hole. Maybe I should stop going down this rabbit hole. I don't even know what purposes it serves. Okay, I have an idea that the powers that be might believe in this stuff.
Well, that's the thing. You have to understand it if you have any hope of not being just swept aside.
Yeah. And it's whether, like, in your point, we can take part of it once there's a time is right, reset the cycle, live in that good length and draw it out. And then my idea is don't partake in it at all. Expose everything, reveal everything, all the historical accounts. It's kind of like a fixing of the world in a way.
Mhm.
It's like you've got people who've been hiding things to everyone except for a select group who will help you run the world. People are gonna. It's almost tough. It's like it's almost like you've got dogs who are in shelters, right? They've been abused by their previous owners, whatever, and they're finally free. You could let them out and play around. All they want to do is just kind of cower right next to you and just not go anywhere because they're just too afraid. It's like, I just feel like that's kind of like the normal person out there in society that doesn't believe in anything that's a cult. Believe that the current historical context is 100% accurate. That the people who are in power are not corrupt at all. That the people who are making it up are these fake news people to do it just because we're in our basements and we just really want to hurt people just for fun, right? I think they would have a crazy time of it all. It's like,
oh yeah, like a full disclosure would absolutely break the mind and spirit of most of society. But a lot of people would probably just reject it outright. They would just like reject it out of hand without any psychological damage because they're already too set in their way of thinking. It'd be chaos because it'd be a mixed bag for sure.
Yeah. But in my opinion, that's the only way they can fully heal. You have to be fully broken and realize that the only way to fully heal is to rely on yourself, rely on what you know or think is true, etc., and have that basis, a foundation to form whatever thought process you have and restructure it, renew it. I mean, I think that's the way to go. You can't do it on a lie. You can't base a foundation on a lie because it's just unstable a foundation, right? It's gonna collapse one way or another. It just when is the thing, when we keep getting embedded into a more structured area where there's more authoritarianism or totalitarianism, whatever.
Well, you have to remember, though, I think, because here's the thing: you're obviously a rational actor, so this might not make sense to you. Okay.
Okay.
But a noble lie is critical to the foundation of something, whether it's an endeavor, a nation, any of these things. And the reason why a noble lie matters so much is that it's an unassailable truth with which you can wrap the kind of collective will of the movement that you have behind. The idea is that basically whether or not everyone in the group knows that it's a lie or everyone in the group believes that it's true or it's a mixed bag, foundational myths particularly that are lies, they're just too perfect of a story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people don't necessarily have to literally believe in them, but what they symbolize can be very powerful in motivating people. So it's kind of like, even in the United States, the whole, oh yeah, George Washington couldn't tell a lie, so when he wrecked his father's cherry orchard, he admitted to it. Like, I'm pretty sure that didn't happen, but the idea is that it's not always necessary some big horrific conspiracy. It can be kind of like, okay, you know how we teach kids to believe in Santa Claus so that when they get old enough, they realize, oh, wait, I'm being manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
The Santa Claus isn't the only mechanism in society that was designed to be one of these steps where you're allowed to realize you're being manipulated and you've reached the next level of revealed truth, I guess is the way of putting it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that there's always another control system. Like, most recently, I identified a control system that, like, back when I was like a teenager, like 19, 20, 21 years old, I definitely was in a control system. I was completely atheistic and totally hedonistic. I liked raves and shit like that. I didn't see any purpose in life. It was just all that kind of crap, right? But that got me into the psychedelic drugs, and that's what got me interested in spirituality. But then I started heading down all this spiritual path, and it was being controlled by other people. It wasn't self-directed. And it was like, no, that seems like that was something I was being led into as well. And then even this stuff with the archaeology, stuff that supports establishment talking points is found by quote anti-establishment archaeologists all the time. But the thing is that if there's actual proof and it's not fabricated, is this the limited hangout of, okay, well, this aspect of what we claim to be the truth, you're now allowed to know because whatever reason, right? We need a certain amount of people to know it in order for it to be a useful information. Like, it has to reach saturation point.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, for example, at a certain point, the Catholic Church had to admit that they were taking away all the people's silver and copper vases because they wanted the monetary value of the stuff. It wasn't witchcraft that these things purified the water. Because honestly, this was a common tradition. This is all documented. Okay. What the pagan Europeans in the Roman Empire would do, and the Celtic ones too, and even in the Nordic countries and Baltic countries as well, is they would have copper and silver water vessels. They'd put like 4 to 6 liters of water in it overnight. Then it'd be the water they used for the next day. They didn't have to spend energy or firewood boiling it. And the electrical properties of this copper and silver would do something that makes it antibacterial or antimicrobial. Whatever, right? But then the church was like, no, it's witchcraft. Give us those. Oops, we got a whole bunch of new silver candlesticks. What do you know, right? But the thing is then people start dying of diarrhea and drinking all day, every day, because that's not how you get the water sicknesses. So then, oh, look, everyone's drunk on whiskey all the time. Look how easy it is to control them, right?
Yep.
Like,
it's I always wonder if coffee as the business model, because here's the thing with coffee is when you take it at work and it's supplied usually pretty much for free at a lot of corporate buildings, commercial buildings, and it's good because it gives you that initial 2-3 hours of really good work stuff. Your brain's kicking, firing on all cylinders. And then, near the end of the day, when you're about to go home, no one's going to take coffee because they can't sleep at night if they take another dose. And, they don't, their brain's not firing on all cylinders. They got that high and they got that low. So they might just go home and just relax, go, I don't know, drink beer or something like that. You have these mechanisms where they're not taking that caffeine at like 8, 9, 10 p.m. midnight like some people do at like universities, or me if I'm really wanting to stay up late. I feel like there's control mechanisms in place. I always wonder, is it planned or is it just happened that way? And it's like, hey, that's a good one. Whoever thought of that's a genius. You know, it's like
What do you mean?
the like people like beer. Like let's just get the
Oh, okay,
populace
yeah.
filled up
Oh,
with
yeah.
beer, or let's get people who are working from 9 to 5. Let's give them free caffeine and sugars, so they work really good when they're at work, and then when they're done, you know, they hit that low.
Oh,
Uh,
well, for me, I think society's obsession with caffeine.
mhm,
Here's the thing: it did spark the Enlightenment in terms of switching from gin being the drink of choice to coffee being the drink of choice.
mhm,
But in the sense that, okay, what was it? Oh, yeah, caffeine. Even though caffeine or coffee in general has been shown to actually improve liver health,
mhm.
at the same time, it also overall lowers your body's ability to fight bacterial infections.
Oh, I did not know that.
So people are going to be more prone to getting infections if they're always drinking caffeine, and that's good for the people manufacturing over-the-counter drugs and antibiotics.
Ah, now we got multiple layers to this thing now.
But that's the thing, though. That could just be a coincidence, and people drink caffeine because it's addicting.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I've had that addictive stuff. Once I tried to lose weight and I did a good job. I took those little pills that are full of caffeine and other things. So basically, it keeps my metabolism going. And I stopped it at the 30-day period because I didn't want to go longer than 30 days. Got the two worst migraines of my life, I guess. It was just horrible. So you can't even focus on anything at that day after, and then day after that, it starts getting a little bit better because you're starting withdrawal. Um, and then second time was I'm at my parent-in-laws, and I'm drinking coffee with them in the mornings, and I'm still getting these crazy head migraines. I'm like, what's going on? Why am I having these migraines? You know, second day I finally talked to them, and I realized they're drinking decaf coffee. So I was going
Oh,
through
so you're
the
going through withdrawal, yeah.
withdrawals. Um, yeah, it's pretty bad. And yeah, one of the reasons why is withdrawals are so bad to go through is like you almost don't want to stop just so you don't have to go through that withdrawal phase. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
I'd have to go through
Withdrawal is your
that.
body saying.
Yep.
Hmm?
I mean,
No, withdrawal is just your body saying that you have, like, the chemical that you were using to perform this function
mhm.
is better than what your body's making on its own. So quit making me make it on its own. Like,
Yeah.
just give me more of that.
Yep. So people will know when I'm getting ready for something like a endeavor or training is when I get off of coffee. I love coffee. I love the way it tastes. I love the way it smells. Uh, I mean, I actually fall asleep better after I drink a cup of coffee, which is weird. Um, but yeah, I'll go through withdrawals, and that way I'm ready for and focused without the need for coffee or any type of caffeine slash sugar. And it's weird that I would do things like that because you would think in a normal, like even if you're a soldier in the U.S., you would drink your coffee, you would eat your sugar, because it's always going to be supplied to you. It's always going to be there. But when you're not in a big establishment type of organization, you don't know what's going to be coming up next, and you want to be at the top of your game. So that's a little bit of a difference between like the individual slash being in an organizational senses. Uh, you have to do everything on your own. You have to figure things out on your own. You're always relying on yourself. No one's going to come and save you. You have to have that mentality. And I think that's the mentality that why a lot of soldiers in the U.S. that don't make it very far, they don't make it very well after their service, is they don't realize that they're always dependent on something. They're always dependent that their upper command's going to come and get them. They're dependent on, you know, the government will help supply them with medication or whatnot, but you know they don't. They get cut off and they realize no one's there to help them. And I think that's how a lot of people who once they leave the military, I think that's what most of their focus should be on, as far as like healing, recuperating, especially their mental state, is realizing that no one's gonna be there to help them. Their fellow Marines, Army, whatever it is, their government, they're not gonna be there to help them. No, they're not gonna be there to save them. That they have to be self-reliant.
No, that's some really unfortunate stuff. They could just form, syndicalist militias, but I think that actually probably does happen to a degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's more support groups, and they'll usually form them because of be formed by ex-military people, and that usually helps them because they know what they're going through. But
are you at all familiar with the history of the whole Patriot Prayer thing?
No.
Okay, it's one of the phenomena in U.S. politics that I've noticed in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. That to me, just looking at it, doesn't. Well, it makes sense in this fact that it doesn't make sense in a way that makes sense for America. So it's kind of like, yes, on its surface, in any other country, I wouldn't understand this, but in America, it makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they claim to be some kind of. Right, okay, that's the other thing too. So I'm not going to speak universally about them because they typically don't speak as I'm an authority for the whole group. They talk as individuals.
Okay.
But basically, they claim to be Christians who follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, and they hold prayer rallies, which is something like that again. Is explicitly forbidden in all of the Gospels of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And even though Christians in other countries, like who actually still practice, tend to actually follow what the Bible says,
mm-hmm.
American Christians have this whole popular culture version of Christianity in their head that doesn't seem to correspond with them having read the entire Bible themselves. Like they're just being preached to out of key parts of it by preachers.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just like, no, Jesus specifically said your prayers should be private, nor should you ever repeat them. Only ever pray on a topic once. And no, Jesus specifically says that repeated prayer, I think it's in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus says that repeated prayers and mantras are pagan in their nature inherently.
No, I'll look that up.
And that Christian prayers are private and singular. But that isn't how a lot of Christians practice.
Yeah. Excuse me. And like Bill Cooper, when I noticed him saying once, like he was a Christian, but he's not the normal Christian that they would think. That having an actual temple or a place of worship isn't a place. It's actually, you don't have to have those nice little churches or monasteries or whatever you want to call them. But it's just anywhere where there's just more than one person who you're gonna pray with. That right there is a place of worship. That's the church. But the church these days have been instilled in a lot of the Christians as to being like you have to go out and find that church that has that steeple and all that stuff.
Yeah, they say that the age of Aquarius is going to be defined by a conflict between centralized authority and disparate power. And everyone always likes to think that means the New World Order versus the Resistance, right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't think that's what it means. I think that what it means is that just as a concept, humanity is constantly stuck between this. Okay, so if we're not organized into some sort of big monolithic group, we're vulnerable to other big monolithic groups. And that tug and pull between, particularly now that reality is so subjective, that with so much fake news and disinformation being so easy, and then genuine information just being buried by the mass of it,
mm-hmm.
It's going to be, do you basically just stick to yourself, believe what you believe personally for what you can verify for yourself, or do you join a movement just so you can have that surety of belief that, well, I might not be believing the right thing, but at least enough other people also believe it. Like that, the people being pulled between those two extremes, I think, is only going to get worse because of technology.
Oh yeah, personally experienced it a couple days or if not a week ago. I'm here with my own thought processes, my own things that I want to talk about. Other people went a different way, and it's not even like say goodbye. Nice having talked with you for these last couple of months or a year. It's just like, dude, you're an asshole. It's like I can't. All right, but yeah, I think I'm seeing your point, and it's interesting because I've always been a loner. I'm not sure if that's because of my behavior, or if that's just inherent, if that's just the way I am, and thus that affects my behavior. But it's not like I'm planning to be a loner. I'm trying to get form something tangible, you know, to do something that's like, if we want something that's not done right, then we got to create the alternative for it. But if the alternative is just the light version of what's not right, then all it is just the light version of what's not right. And people don't understand that or see that. And so this is basically news. It's like people come to me privately and go, hey, are you there? Can you report this? I'm like, no, you report it. You have access. You do videos. I've seen you do videos. Just upload it so it's public. And if you want to come on, this is where we come on and say, hey, I did a video of this. Someone has, hey, I did a video of this. Hey, I saw someone do a video of this, etc. And we come on and talk about it and say, okay, now it's more public, it's more widespread, and it's not just us having to go search. It's just, okay, we came in, gave a little brief overview of that maybe 5, 10, 15-minute video that we did some research on, and that's it. It's like, that's the show. That's your news. You don't have to have this big, you know, those big backgrounds of TVs going on with people who are like working in the background. You don't know what they're doing. They're walking around carrying papers, you know, so it looks more professional. This is news. And hi Ryan, how's it going? And so the thought of creating an alternative light version, eventually that becomes that same version of something, just doesn't make sense to me. And I think this is where you and me always differ. I think Perseus is, you get that cycle going. You want that cycle to just repeat, but just repeat in the good times being longer and the bad times being shorter. I just want to cut off that entire cycle. But then again, we might end up hitting that cycle eventually again by the same people who, maybe it's just the human condition, Perseus.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I think that the human condition is constant strife. Like, I've come to terms with that. I don't like it. I don't want to live my life on those terms, but I don't see anything in history that points in any other direction.
Yeah.
It's not strife between groups of people. It's humans struggling against nature.
Yeah, your mic voice is a little awkward, Perseus.
Can eat you up.
Yeah, you can kind of echo. Who's echoing?
I think it's because of your device. Who's worse between us, Ryan? You're the third party.
Perseus.
Okay.
Yeah, my housemates are also using the internet downstairs.
Oh, yeah, that might be it. It's taking up your bandwidth.
Oh no, it's not that. I mean, they probably are doing it, but right now my YouTube app is updating itself without permission.
Okay, yeah, it's good now.
Now you're clear.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, I think, was it last night? I was listening to you and I was saying good night. It was like at 3, maybe 3:30. And you guys are saying you guys are still up 2 hours after that or something?
Mm-hmm.
Man, you guys are crazy. What are you guys talking about up so late? Was Shirley on that late too?
Nah, Shirley went to bed early.
Okay. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts, Ryan, of that Cortez person winning the New York Democrat?
Yeah, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah.
Good on her.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to do much, but you know, it's a start.
Are you for the Justice Dems, and are you Dem entering again?
Not really.
Okay.
No, I mean they need to prove themselves, and just winning.
By what you say.
Yeah, I mean, just winning a pre-select, what we call a pre-selection,
Primary, yeah.
a primary pre-selection. It doesn't really prove anything because you haven't really done anything. You've just promised all these things.
Yeah.
So it's not, there's no proof in the pudding. But we know that Joe Crowley is an out and out capitalist and sells his soul to the highest bidder. So, I mean, it really doesn't take much to outdo him on moral grounds.
Yeah.
So,
do you want to switch to hosting? Because I need to do some stuff, and it's really humid here.
All right, just let me stay on, Perseus. You don't need to change.
Yeah, you don't need to leave, Perseus. we do all the work behind the scenes.
Honestly, I think my phone just can't handle Zoom.
Have you ever? I mean, if you don't want to show yourself, you can always just call in. That way, it's probably better and less.
Oh no! I have unlimited data, but the way that the actual minutes work in Canada, it's better to use the data.
Oh, that's really weird.
Well, right now I'm on my home Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So have you given any more thought while Ryan's setting up Perseus of starting a channel back up?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what I can actually do it about that isn't directly related to my sources of anxiety. Because when I was making up videos about corruption in Canadian politics, I was getting so worked up, I was worried I was going to violate the specific legal laws here about incitement to violence.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like I was already walking the line with the kind of shit I was saying.
Yeah.
And I was getting so angry at some of the articles I was going over, talking about, like, basically the Canadian Parliament, just like any government, has a lot of expense scandals where people are putting a lot of government taxpayer dollars towards personal expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, Justin Trudeau, he's been avoiding, for the last year and a half, he's been avoiding meeting with the ethics commissioner about his misuse of these funds and him accepting inappropriate gifts as prime minister and all kinds of shit like that. He just is literally not going to see the ethics commissioner. And it's in like a running drama. Every month there's an update. He still hasn't seen them.
What do you think will happen when he does see them?
Oh, I mean, he's going to be removed from power before he sees them. I mean,
okay.
The elections next year, the Liberals are trending downward massively in Canada.
All right, so people who are on my show, go ahead and go to Ryan's show to continue this. I will provide the link in the live chat and also the YouTube description box.
Oh, Ryan, one thing I wanted to say, based off of some of the conversations we had yesterday, if you thought some of my positions were kind of really cold-hearted, and I had very much of an attitude of, well, that I don't see that as my problem, so I don't care, particularly when it comes to human suffering. You know where that actually comes from? Within me? You know that guy